explore, and every Viking voyage is all-inclusive with no children and no casinos. Discover more at Viking.com.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I am Charlotte Gardner. I've lived at Adams Place for 3 years. After my husband died, I didn't want to cook for one anymore. Everything just got too tedious.
How long did you look around?
I did not look around. I did not even consider any place else.
Hi, this is Terry Deal at Adams Place. Call me for more information about Adams Place. Phone 615-904-9111.
Adams Place on Memorial across from Walmart.
Get the latest headlines, events, and stories all in just minutes a day. Weekdays, the Rutherford Roundup Podcast. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform or wgnsradio.com.
FM 1019, FM 100.5, wgnsradio.com. The Good Neighbor Network.
When the weather turns bad, minutes, even seconds matter.
This is an early heads up for southern Rutherford County.
Rutherford Weather brings you live radar and expert meteorologist insight, giving you the early heads up when storms threaten.
A lot of areas are going to see some impacts from this storm.
From analysis to live camera views, we keep you informed before, during, and after the storm.
I think the vast majority of the hail with this now is going to be quarter to perhaps golf ball size.
Rutherford Weather. Stay ahead of the storm.
We're the Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro. FM 100.5 Smyrna. Audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Welcome into the Roundtable, WGNS, on this, I don't know, maybe a little sunny Monday morning. I'm Andy Herzier, founder and executive director of First Schott. I have a longtime friend in again. I know people are getting not used to this, but I have a lot of friends in this community. And Nate, your Schott is one of those guys that when I was young into First Schott, you kind of came alongside of me. I don't know if you remember. We had about 3 or 4 really deep conversations about running a business. Yeah. And you kind of opened up my eyes, even though I'm in the nonprofit world. You said you'd better run this as a business, and you gave me some really good stuff. So, Nate, you've kind of always come alongside guys like me. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Has that been a calling? What prompts you to help a young Andy Herzier?
Oh man, thank you first for having me today, and I really appreciate it. It's great to
welcome.
be with you and great to see you. And time goes by. I remember some of those conversations. I don't remember all of them, but I just remember how much you came to mean to me and my family and our kids and stuff with First Schott and things like that. So you've been great for this community, and I really apprite it. So I know the community does too. I think that's just been something that's always been in my heart. And, I looked at that as if I had something, I always wanted to share it. And I think that was the thing. I remember, and you've got me on here. I know I really appreciate it to be able to tell my story about what happened to me and what went on. But I think that's part of what got me off track a little bit, and really wanting to help people, and sometimes wanting to help people, not in your case, but helping them more than they wanted to help themselves, or having more hope in them than they had in themselves. And then I also think that, I just think God put that in me. I see where I was and where I came from as a young person. And, a lot of things looked easy for me, but they weren't. I mean, I had to study hard. I had to do things hard, do things extra. It was the grind. And I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are like that, and things that look easy a lot of times are not so easy. But, you know, there are people that come along, and if I had something, I always wanted to share it, you know, and do that. So that was what really made me want to do that. But it was really the Lord in my life also. I mean, God.
Always.
Yes.
You know, we look back, and I tell my story. I go back to 1978 when I'm a young teenage boy. You know, we all have a story.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into yours. Talk about growing up.
Yeah.
And what prompted you to lead you to the education that you got.
Yeah, I think, you know, growing up, you know, first of all, my family's from Middle Tennessee. My mom's from here. Her, you know, her parents are here. They my mom grew up out in the Walter Hill community, and I grew up in Florida, though. My mom met my dad on a spring break in Florida, and ended up moving down there, had me in Florida. I grew up in Florida. And then at 17, I came up here to Tennessee on a tennis scholarship to Carson Newman in East Tennessee. So that was, growing up was really, you know, there were a lot of things that happened. I think there were a lot of things that people read in the paper and that were true about my story, you know, when I went through things before I went to prison. And the thing that I really want to highlight the most about it, without getting into things, is as I've seen, you know, the choices that I made, whether they were choices my dad made or that we went through as a family, you know, in a lot of ways he did the best he could. And I don't put anything, you know, off on him on that. However, you know, my mom and I were talking the other day, and, you know, you get through life doing the best things that you can do. But it was you know, at times it was difficult. You know, there was some home that was, you know, working. My dad was a traveling salesman. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until high school. And, you know, then she went out and got her hair. She started doing hair and became a cosmetologist, got her own business. With that, it was up and down. My parents divorced probably when I was 20 in college. And, you know, I'm still close to my parents. I'm close to my dad. He lives in Florida now, and my mom's here. But, and my grandmother's actually alive. She's 99. So, you know, and they're the Hackneys, or her maiden name's Barrett, as Brian was saying here. I think we're related, you know, in the studio here. So I said, yeah, if you're related to a Barrett, I'm probably related to him here in town. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I tell people, but that's the way it is. Or they're related to me. They say that now. I don't know if that's good or bad to be related to Nate. So, but anyway, it was, there were so many good things, though, also about growing up. I think the thing that I remember the most, we were talking the other day with my mom about growing up in church and really getting to know, you know, the Lord, and coming to what, you know, what he did, and how I was really involved in church. So really coming up with a knowledge of right and wrong, and a knowledge of people and helping people. You're talking about helping people. I think that's really where I learned about helping other people, was really being involved in church. I mean, we didn't have a lot of things. I mean, my parents were both working, or my dad was a lot, and then there were 4 of us, you know, as kids. So coming up alongside that, we had a fun time. It was great. I mean, in those days, I mean, you know, your parents ran you out of the house until it was time to come back home. It wasn't, you know, some of the games or the screen time that everybody says, and mom would ring the dinner bell, and that was when you came back, and you knew you came back home at dark. And if you came back in earlier than that, there was something wrong with you. They'd take you to the doctor or something, you know.
Yeah,
so,
we had a whistle.
Yeah, I get it. I so get it. That's so true.
You know, and you better be close enough to hear the whistle too, though.
Mm-hmm.
So we had boundaries that our parents taught us, and you know, our stories are similar. I grew up in church.
Yeah.
I'll just, you know, we're going to share this back and forth. My dad was very, very harsh.
Yeah.
But he loved us so much, he didn't want us to do the same things he did.
Yeah.
I can look back on that now.
Mm-hmm.
So look back on that as a young teenage boy, now getting ready, because you're still young. You're 17 years old going to college. That's young.
Yes.
So were you prepared to go to Carson Newman and be an athlete and student?
Oh, man. You know, I wasn't I don't think as much as I could have been. I remember, you know, a lot of things I remember growing up at 17 in those days. I remember, you know, unlike today, so many of us, I wanted to leave. I mean, I was ready to go, you know, and just get out and go, not just see the world, but do. And I was prepared in one sense I knew what my faith was. I knew what that was about. I knew how to study and work. But as far as going into athletics and things like that, I mean, that was a whole nother world. That went to a whole nother level, and that was that opened my eyes to the intensity of expectation and things that so much came easy, I think, for me at different times. Even though I worked hard for it, it wasn't. You were on not just a level playing field. There were people in there that were so much more talented and gifted and could do things and just unbelievable in athletics. Same thing in the classroom. I wanted to do pre-med, and I thought I would go to medical school. And as I got into Carson Newman and I started working there, I'll never forget, I had my first serious girlfriend was in college. And I'll tell you, I kept wondering, well, why am I going to go to medical school? I mean, all the medical school guys I know, they were working, and they were working hard, and they'd work, 24 hours and be on call and do the things like that. And the dentist lived next door to them. And they worked 4 days a week. And I thought, well, man, why do I want to do that? I can go live next door to the guys, work 4 days a week, go 8 to 4, 8 to 5, and be finished. So, I jokingly said that, but I actually, that's what made me look at dental school, because I knew some dentists and I liked to work with my hands. And as I got through that, I actually finished in 3 years at Carson Newman and then went to dental school shortly thereafter. So I didn't have an undergraduate degree, which was odd. There's people that are doing that more now, but that was an odd thing at the time. So
very odd, because we're about the same age. So I know it took most kids 5 in our air, and it took me 4, and I thought I was finishing quick, and because I was unlike you. I wasn't a great student, but I always did enough.
Yes, it's so true. That was the thing I came to realize later. There was something that I saw in our family that was really generational, and it was something sad that went on, but alcoholism ran through our family. And when you see that, they call it adult child syndrome now, but adult children of alcoholics. But something that you see that's really a big, I don't know, a personality trait of adult children is they're really overworking, hardworking in a lot of ways, or they go the other way. I mean, they either take the shame on of the family, or they take the action of the family and they start putting it to work, and they start pushing their feelings or hide behind things, and they become people pleasers. And that was another thing. You asked me about that earlier. I think I talk about the Lord so much, and God has been so good to me, and yet I think what we have that goes maybe in us that comes out not in a good way, like that people pleasing. And I learned a lot about people pleasing. Is something that you hide behind. People pleasing is not such a good thing. I mean, yes and yes and no needs to be no. And I remember that, but I also remember having the inability to say no I didn't have, that was very difficult for me.
You're the first guy to tell me to be stingy with your yeses. You really, see, so now it wakes those conversations back up. Talk about what you mean with that. I think this is an important piece for people listening that say yes to everything and doesn't get half of it done.
Oh yeah. Well, I really learned. You think you're doing that because if you say no, you're first of all, either you're not supposed to say no, because so many times, especially in the Bible Belt, I mean, we think because we're Christians we have to say yes to everything or help people or do the things, and so many times either you don't have time to do it, you don't have the ability or the skill to do it. And I remember, that was always coming around, and it would be, oh yes, I can help you, or yes, people can do that. But I remember the first time I ever talked about that was way back when I went to a counseling session, even in dental school, and I heard the word codependent, and I didn't really understand that. And then I remember meeting up with a guy here in town locally who's a dear friend of mine now, Dr. Chip Dodd. Chip really confronted me one time, and then he had since, helped me through a lot of stuff, and really treated me in many ways, and went to his professional Center for Professional Excellence, and really got to know myself a lot better there. But really understanding that when you say yes to something, so many times you've got to say no first to it before you say yes, because the no is really to understand, what am I doing it for? Can I do it? I mean, that I think is the biggest thing in ways that I'd harm my family. my wife and kids. I was always saying yes to people. We have a home over here in Bellwood, and we would bring people in. The reason we bought that house was so we could have, missionaries stay there and people that needed help. And if people were in a bad place, they just come and stay for free. I mean, we had people stay with us sometimes for a year and a half. And that was a great thing, but it was also, I didn't realize it until after I got home from prison, and even before that. But I got home, and the comments were just, Dad, that wasn't what we always wondered what you were doing that for. And I always thought if I could help enough people, that thing that was inside of me would just get better. But it seems the more people I helped, the worse it got for me, because it started pulling on me more and more and more, because I was always saying yes and never no. So it was even easier. I mean, when I said that to you, I was still battling that people pleasing mode, But I knew that sickness, that disease. It's terrible. You come with a smile and people look at you as fake, or they look at you as you're always saying yes. You're glad handing people. That doesn't work. I really learned a lot of things. A lot of good can come out of it, but the person that you're really harming is you. I mean, I was harming me the most.
When you peeled that back.
Yeah.
All right. Why were you a people pleaser?
Well, I think because, hiding behind that I wasn't enough. I think that's something I always find with men. I'm working with men so many times, and young men, and especially people going back to prison. The thing that I talk to men about the most, when you really ask a man, what is he thinking at night? And I think it all relates to us. I said, what's it like when you put your head down on that pillow? And they always come out and say to me, just like I did, do I have what it takes to make it? And you wake up with that same feeling a lot of times. Am I enough? Am I doing enough? And so many times it's about performance over presence. And it was about performing instead of being. That was where God asked us. The Lord just says, he says he'll take it. He says he'll do it. You know what I mean? And take his yoke upon us and learn from him. What is he about? Peace. He's about love. He's about grace. And he's also about no. I mean, he's about holy or righteous anger, and wanting something that is, you can want something better, but you don't want it at the expense of yourself and others. And I think that's where God taught me. And I was, those things to me that come up inside of me with that is so much about, not knowing really who I was or whose I was, so to speak, at the time, and still thinking I had to perform for the Lord and perform for other people to like me rather than just be. And that's, to me, what I found out about it.
So how did you grow out of it?
Oh my gosh, I went to prison. I mean,
I mean,
that's how, if you really want to know. I mean, I battled that. I mean, I talked about Chip Dodd, and I talked about going to the Center for Professional Excellence, and did a lot of therapy around that, and a lot of stuff with church and things that were really good. But it was when you start getting investigated by the FBI, and you start thinking, well, what's going on here? In the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, you start to looking at your practice. And I had a dental practice, in town since 1992, and things were going good. But the other thing that I saw about myself was it wasn't just the people pleasing. The people pleasing leads to this silence inside of me, and I think other people can relate to this. That you start getting resentful because you're not telling the truth. You're taking everything else on you, and then you're expecting something back. Well, I'm really using people. I mean, people pleasers use people. People think, oh, he's such a nice person. He's getting something, or she's getting something out of it. I was getting something for it because I wanted people to think I looked good, or I looked like it on the outside, or oh, what was he? But on the inside, I was hurting. I mean, it was not a good way to be. So I think when I really learned about that was going to prison, because prison is you've got one thing in prison only, and you got your word. And and people in there, especially these men you're around, they know you. They can look through you. They can see you. I mean, they can see you coming before you come to them, because street smarts, the things they live on, right or wrong, regardless of what they did. I mean, we're all in prison. We broke the law. I broke the law. That's why I was there. And it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, because that's where it leads you. If I didn't deal with those things early on, and I was put in a position where I think pride took over. The pride of life. The Bible says pride goes before a fall, and then entitlement. You're in the community. I'm doing things around. And I got lost in that. And I got lost in really who I was, and like I talked about, whose I was and what I was really called to do. And I did a lot of good things, but I also did things that were, that weren't Christ-like. They weren't what I knew to be true or right or good. So that was, I hope that makes sense.
Well, let's dive into it a little bit deeper.
Sure.
Because I think who I belong to, right, has empowered me to do so many different things that a guy that's dyslexic,
Yes.
speech impediment.
Oh, yeah.
Here I am. Look, we're having this conversation. I had those inadequate feelings.
Oh, yeah.
So I now know who, though, I belong to.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about how that empowered you, and who is that?
Well, who is Jesus Christ? I mean, that's the big thing, is who I belong to and whose I am. And, but the thing I learned the most there, too, was I had to go get me to give me. I didn't have me. And if I don't have all of me, I know in church, and I love our church, we go over to World Outreach and have been over there for a number of years. And, Pastor Allen is so great. But the kindness that he did, I want to tell a story about him, too. In prison each week, he'd write me on Sundays, and I'd get an email. And, he's growing and going, and just the encouragement there. But that showed me that where people that really care, they weren't doing it for ulterior motives. He didn't have any reason to do that. Nobody even knew it. I mean, they couldn't see it. I mean, I knew it, my gosh. But what I learned is that if I'm not in there taking care of myself and getting all of me, I couldn't give me. And how can I give myself to the Lord? To understand who I was and what could I really lay down on the altar until I really understood who I was in him, but also the depth of my sin, or the depth of the things that I did that I knew not only better to do, but just the things that were inside of me that I could really take to him and say, you know what, I'm broken. And the world knew I was broken anyway. I mean, people that were my friend, I do a lot of men's groups, and a couple of guys in there would always say, man, I'm just so glad you're so different on stuff. I said, I don't have time anymore to be fake. I'm not, and it wasn't that I was always fake, but it's that little thing inside of me. Do you know what I'm saying? You want to say yes. And I think the listeners, people can relate to that. It's that little yes when you just need to say, no, I can't do it. I learned no as a complete sentence in prison. No. You don't have to give a reason why. It's just no. I don't want to do that. Or no, and thank you. And I didn't do that a lot. And I thought I always had to caretake and care for others when, people many times can take care of themselves. They're just, asking. And when God moves us to go there, that's when I need to go there. If he doesn't, I don't need to be there.
The self-discovery of ourselves, that's the only way we can grow in Christ.
Yes.
So talk about who Nate Schott really is. Now that you've discovered that.
Gosh, that is something I haven't ever been asked that way. That's really good. You've done this long enough now to really know how to get to people. I really want to think that if I really come down to it, it's just looking at being a Christ follower, and all that encompasses and all that holds is, how do I really lay down my life daily to him in that sanctifying process that keeps going on, and how do I, look to him to really, make my steps where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do. You asked me to do this, and I was really glad to do it, because talking about my choices, and I don't say mistakes, I say choices. I really believe we make choices.
Absolutely.
I knew what was right and wrong. I knew at the time, not necessarily the extent of how I was breaking the law, but it was kind of turning a blind eye. Well, turning a blind eye is breaking the law. I mean, it's intentional. I tell people, they said, well, your plea said you did that stuff. I said, I broke the law. And I said, look, I can tell you I'm either was being intentionally unintentional about the law, or unintentionally intentional about breaking the law. One of the two. And I still deal with that. However, I knew right and wrong. I signed a contract with the government saying I was going to provide the care. I didn't provide the care. I didn't do it. And I thought others were going to take care of it, but I know they didn't. I broke the law. It's buck stopped with me. people, I tell people all the time, oh, I made a mistake. Years back, I remember the young people going through this thing where they would do something. Oh, just kidding. Just kidding. They would say, just kidding. And I was like, we're not just kidding. This is serious business. If you go 85 miles an hour down the interstate and there's an officer that gets you, he goes by and he pulls you over and says, do you know how fast you're going? Oh, no, I didn't know. I didn't mean to. Well, I'm sorry. You're going 85. Here's your ticket. My ticket was going to prison. And whether you know it or not, when we are given responsibility for things, and I was given responsibility to lead people, I was given responsibility in healthcare, I was given responsibility in the community, very involved politically, I was given responsibility to my family. I mean, those are serious charges, so to speak, that God gives us as people, as men and women, to be where we're supposed to be and where He's got us to be. And this is serious. And whether you know about the law or not, we're held accountable to it. And that's the part, we can go into the story about Jesus and, understanding what the law is and why He came. And that was what I saw. But on a practical side of it, the practical part was that I was accountable for that. And when I broke the law, I broke all of the law. It wasn't a little bit of it. And the consequence was prison. And I don't sit here and like that, but I love what I was able to get from it going through it. I don't like it. People said, what did you, who were your victims? Well, the victims, I had really essentially, I still practiced, but I wasn't day-to-day practice since 2013. But I had associates. I was overseeing those associates. I didn't oversee them the way that it was supposed to be seen. I led them in a direction that wasn't the right direction to go. I harmed them. I harmed patients through them. I harmed the people of the state. I mean, taxpayers' dollars came. People said, who are your victims? You are, the listeners. And I apologize. I'm sorry. I don't, I have a lot to say about that. And yet I can't go back and take back on that. I pay restitution. But that still doesn't take away going back. And I can't go back, but I can go forward. And like I said, I don't ever want to, I wouldn't give you any amount of money for what I got for going to prison, but I don't ever want to go back there again, and I that was a place though that I really found the Lord in a way for me, that He spoke to me about how special I was to Him, that I didn't have to please people, that I could stop performing, that I could just be. And that's part of my story, and that's the story that I want to tell people. Whatever they're going through today, God's got a reason for it. And if you, usually I found I was the cause. It was my choices that did it. I have to own it. And most of the time, we're the cause of our problems. My mom used to always say, you can pick your sin, but you can't pick the consequences, And I would be like, isn't that so true? And so many times we do it, whether it's whether we unhealthy eating habits. We talked about that earlier before we came on. Whatever we're doing, putting in our bodies, that's a temple the Bible talks about. But there's consequences to that, how we take care of it. There's consequences of, do we keep our word? How do people think of us? I mean, all those little things add up to big things. And, for me, it was a great thing that the government started investigating me. It wasn't great for the people around me. I hate that. I'm sorry for the people that worked for me. I'd apologize to them even more. I've been able to do that a lot and make amends. But and the patients and the community. But, God, what we mean for evil, God can use for good. And that's the cool thing. You know what I'm saying? And the thing that God is always at work, and I think He's continually calling us to Him to show Him. He says, I have come that we can have life and have it abundantly. And by the appearance of things, it looked like they were on the outside. I had abundant life with things. Well, things are not the answer. Things can lead you deeper in the hole. And show me a person with a lot of things, and I'll show you a person with a lot of stuff going on down deep inside of them.
Well, I look at it, and I think most men truly don't want other men to see them as who they really truly are, Nate. And God broke me in a different way, and I think He breaks us all in different ways. But I got to a point, and I don't know if you got to this point, and I say this humbly. Mm-hmm. I've stopped worrying about what other people thought about me. I just want to be the best I can be to honor and glorify God. it's not about men now that I worry about. It's about God.
No,
that's where I got.
Oh, man. That's what I learned in prison. Because all you got, like I said, is your word. You don't have anything you can, you can't take anything in. The first thing I was told when I went to prison was, be careful in here. Somebody's always watching. Somebody's always listening. They listen to your phone calls. You don't have the internet. You've got email. They read those, which they should. This is a part of breaking the law. It's a consequence of what I did. And I don't say these stories to glamorize them or to say, oh, wow, I had to go through that. That's the consequence. People make choices each day. What do we put in our body? What do we put in our mind? What do we open, our eyes to? Decisions. We made a vow in marriage. We don't keep that covenant. You step outside of your marriage in times. And so many times, it doesn't mean with other people, but it could be other things, work, things that could even be righteous in many ways or right. And that's what we do.
Basketball for me, right?
I know. You and I have talked about that. It's consumed, and it's out of care. I think of we've talked about it over the years. You've built something beautiful, and it's God-centered, and yet you can get lost in that real quick.
Yes.
And you keep it going, and the good things that come from it, but you can lose yourself in it so fast. Your wife won't have you. Forget about it with the kids. Oh, God's got me. God doesn't have you. You don't even have yourself. And I see that, and that's what I see with people, and that's what happened to me.
Well, we're going to take a break and be back with Nate Schott.
Do you love WGNS Radio? Well, now you can watch it too. WGNS Big G TV brings your favorite radio shows live and on demand, from breaking news and community talk to Rutherford County's top local sports. We've got it all right at your fingertips. Watch anytime, anywhere. WGNS Big G TV, where radio comes to life.
Growing in Christ with life and athletic skills.
So we teach God's word at everything we do to implant it in them so that they understand that the only way to get through the world is with God on their side.
First Schott founder and executive director Andy Herzer.
Our focus is on our inner city here at Patterson Park.
From academics to athletics, First Schott's focus is toward building a stronger, more courageous spirit to face opportunities and obstacles that our youth confront every day. To find out more about First Schott, go to firstschottn.org.
Middle Point Landfill's Mike Klassen.
Let's do the right thing and get some recycling programs off the ground.
Middle Point's trying hard to start a recycling program.
If anyone sees your water bill, you have a waste charge on there, and the city has said it's going to go up from $11 per month up to like $33 per month. For less than half of that cost, we could put a cart at every single person's house and have a fully fledged recycling curbside program that would be immediately viable in this county. Like, that opportunity is here for this city, and it's here now.
The answer's here. Middle Point Landfill.
Not only do we sell jewelry, but we also repair it as well as appraise it. Anything purchased from Bell Jewelers, you receive a complimentary appraisal to give to your insurance company. But even if you have a piece of jewelry that didn't necessarily come from us, that's okay. We have 4 GIA certified appraisers on staff. We appraise it on site, so you know exactly what you have. So come see us at Bell Jewelers, 821 Northwest Broad Street, across from Toots.
My grandmother and Ms. Adams were best friends. She said, Betty, you need to come to Adams' place. You'd love it.
We're talking with Betty Kirksey.
They go above and beyond of what their job is. I wish Miss Adams was still living so I could tell her, you were right. It is where I should be, and it's very nice.
I'm Terry Deal. Call me for more information about Adams Place, located at 1927 Memorial Boulevard, across from Walmart.
Good Neighbor Events is brought to you by the law offices of John Day, AmeriCare Pest Control, and Old National Bank.
This is a paid legal ad.
Hi, this is John Day of the law offices of John Day. I've lived and worked as a lawyer in Middle Tennessee for over 30 years, and to me, every single day has been an honor. That's why our firm is so involved with community programs like bicycle helmet giveaways and our Safe Ride Home program. At the law offices of John Day, we're not just looking to make donations. We want to make a difference in the community we hold so dear. And if you're ever injured, know that we are here for you too.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. This Friday's going to be a big day. Lightning Bugs and Lemonade, this Friday night, 6 until 9, over at Oakland's Mansion. It's an educational and fascinating evening of watching lightning bugs and learning about them. That's this Friday night, 6 until 9, at Oakland's Mansion. And also this Friday night, Main Street Murfreesboro brings back Friday Night Live, 6:30 to 9:30, on the east side of the historic Rutherford County Courthouse. Bring your lawn chairs and meet your friends. Enjoy some great music from Lisa Law and the Suspects. It's all free. Come early and enjoy dinner downtown. Don't miss Friday Night Live. Starts at 6:30. Don't forget, the Red Cross is still critically low on blood. Phone 800-RED-CROSS and make an appointment to give blood. Don't throw away Old Glory. Bring your tattered American flag to WGNS and let the girls from BSA Troop 2019 at Trinity United Methodist Church retire it with dignity. Plus, we also recycle Bibles. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
We'll see increasing cloud cover for this afternoon. Showers and storms likely late in the day with highs in the mid-80s. Scattered storms this evening, low of 61. I'm meteorologist Michael Caron, News Radio WGNS. Currently at 69.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. As a member of MTE, you have access to educational resources to help you tailor energy use to your lifestyle. Interested in electric vehicles? MTE offers incentives to learn about EVs and connect with others who share your interest.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Welcome back into the Roundtable, WGNS. I'm Andy Herzer, founder and executive director of First Schott. Hey, welcome back in. This has been one of the fun shows for me, Nate. I want you to really hear this because I hear it from your heart. And I hope people listening get that really we're all bound by our choices.
Yes.
For everything. Going to prison, let's talk about that experience.
Yeah.
And some of the things that you learned and all of that. Give us a couple stories.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing I learned the most was the most important thing that we all have is time. Regardless of what you think, you've got money in the bank, people around you, and it's your time. I mean, we're all here together. We've got family, but what we do with ourselves and our time is what makes up our, our time on this earth, and what I think what's going to happen in eternity too. And yet, I learned that to me was a really, really big thing. And the other thing that I'll tell you was be in the moment, be in today, because you can't. When you get outside, so many times. I know I would worry, and I still can very easily worry about tomorrow or worry about what's going to happen. Well, you can't control that. Now, you can by the choices you make today, but you can't completely control it all. I mean, we think we do everything right, and then something comes from left field and hits us that, we didn't work on that years ago or whatever it is. But so, God, the Word talks about being in today because we don't have tomorrow. And we're, when the Bible talks about, look at the birds of the air, I clothe them, I feed them. He does the things. Why won't I take care of you? So I remember, one thing about the time issue and where I was in my cell, and I was at a federal prison camp in Montgomery, Alabama. So it was a camp, and people say, oh, that was a country club. I said, well, that's not any country club like I've ever been to. I said, it's a prison. And you're controlled about where you go and what you do, and you could walk off. There's part of it that doesn't have any fence around it. You could walk off it, but what are you going to walk off? I mean, you self-report, you're just going to get more charges. So you're going through life, and you've got to go through your sentence, so to speak. And I think that when the Bible talks about in everything you do as unto the Lord, those were things that you start thinking about. Well, what is my plight in this life? And how did I relate that? You ask about a story. And I remember it was about halfway through my sentence, and I'm looking out the window in my cell, and I remember I had a good friend come by, and he just said, hey, Schott, where you at? Look, get back in here, get back here. And I was looking out the window. And you look out the window and you start daydreaming. And the good or bad thing about Montgomery is it's on a it's at the end of a Air Force base, and you're down there at the end of it by a river, and it's branched off. Well, there's a golf course that runs right beside it on the other side of the fences. So you're seeing people and families playing golf. So you look at that. Well, of course, many of our minds go to, what are our families doing and what's happening. And I'll never forget the guy he was a friend of mine in his cell. He said, "Hey, get back in here." I'm like, "What are you talking about, man?" He says, "There's nothing you can do about out there." He says, "You're in here. You got to do your time in here." And I'll never forget that hit me, because it was like, regardless of what happened, I couldn't do anything about that. I remember my daughter, when I first got in, I called my wife, like right when I got in. My daughter had a flat tire. Well, normally I'd go, "Oh my gosh, what can I do to help her?" Thank God for some friends of ours. She called, and a guy that was really close to, he helped her, and helped her get, and she was in Nashville when that happened. You can't do anything. I mean, you're in prison, you're there, and you got to take care of yourself. But taking care of yourself, that sounds so selfish, but yet, like I said, if I didn't start taking care of me and start planning for things that was going to happen when I got home, and looking for those things, and poor me and what's really happening out there, I can project outside, and we all do it, versus just taking care of what's going on inside to make me better for tomorrow when I got home. What could I do better for me, for my family, for God, or really not do it, but be in it. And then how could I serve better? Because I got to take care of where I'm at right now. And that was one thing that I really learned about. It wasn't one of the glamorous stories. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Look, so many times I've got prison in many ways just makes criminals better criminals. I mean, it is. And there's a lot of guys in there that, have the same story in many ways that I did, or other guys that just got caught up in something. They did it, and, it was like their desire and their fleshly desire, or the things that they wanted gets out of the way, like we all do. It gets into us, and it manifests itself, and it starts feeding. And what does it do? It gives birth to sin. And you see that. So guys are in there the same way. They're like, "Man, what in the heck got me here?" And they look back, and whether it's drugs or alcohol or deals, money, all those things, that thing that we all chase.
Yes.
And it gets out of whack. You can get out of whack really quick. And so many times I see people right now, they're breaking the law, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know it, and that's not as bad as what you broke the law. You're breaking the law." I mean, I consult back to healthcare and dental offices now, and I'm like, you would go under the prison. I went to prison for this, man. What you're doing, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? And either I don't work with them, or I have to back out and say, "Hey, get that straightened out before you come in here." But you see people do that, and I was doing that. But I think you got to take care of today and where I'm at. Like, be in the moment, be present. Because what can you do away from here? I can't do anything outside of here, even for my family right now. I'm sitting here with you.
Yeah, but we look at it. I think it's the thing a lot of people do. When you're even in a conversation, you know who's present and who's not now.
Yes.
Like, I have a real keen awareness of, man, is that man or woman really listening to the story?
Yes.
Right? So I can quickly tell if they're going to be in or out.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how difficult it is to live in the present. Talk about that.
Well, living in the present goes by also keeping your word, as we were talking about earlier. And you asked about a prison story. I'll never forget, I got in, the first day I got in there, I was looking for a pen. Now, we take going to get a pen like sitting in this room, and it's right in front of us. Yeah, you just pick it up. I wanted to write something down. I didn't have anything to write with. I mean, literally going into prison, you are stripped of everything. I mean, they allowed me to take my Bible and a pair of glasses. And you don't have anything. Well, if you don't get to the commissary, you can't buy anything, because most everything in prison, you get 3 meals a day. I wouldn't say they're square, but they're square enough that you survive, you eat, and it goes. But everything else, you get boots, you get socks, you get some underwear that somebody else has probably worn years before. And you have things, and it's prison, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I get it's punishment. So many times I remember going in, and I said, "Oh, it was about rehabilitation." It's about punishment first. People, we do that now. You can argue about where your tax dollars are going, where our tax dollars are going, how to do that stuff, and the thing. It's sad because there are a lot of programs that they do have that could be used for rehabilitation that aren't in there, and that's another conversation for another time with prison reform that I see, and I work on that too. And yet, the things that happen, it's punishment. So when I go in, I was looking for a pen, and I'll never forget. I go in and I just ask for going with the first guy that's in my cell and cellmate. They call them cellies. And hey man, can I borrow a pen? Or I need a pen. And he said, yeah, but you got to give it back. I was like, okay, I wasn't going to do anything with it. Well, he stood there and watched me write with it, and he got it right back. And it wasn't because he was going to use it as a weapon or anything. It was just like it cost him something. And that cost to things in there, it's so precious because there are a lot of people you either don't have money or have the things, and those are things that I started looking at as like, wow, the importance of just being able to have a pen. I can't tell you how many pens I've either thrown away, or you walk by or don't even pick up or something, and how precious that was to me just to be able to write a note, to my family or something. That's what I was doing, and just say, hey, everything's okay, and this is what's happening, and I didn't realize that. So it made me really go down to the basics of what is real and what's true. And the other thing I understood is why they don't want you to give people things in prison. And it's the same thing we don't want to give things for here, but people think they're doing it nicely. It's that people pleasing. Oh, I'll just let you have that. Well, the minute you give somebody something without some payment for it or something, you have something over on that person. You have an I owe you. If I loan you something or if I give you something that you either didn't ask for or you asked for it, but I'm not trying to get it back. And you're not allowed to do that in prison because it becomes a hierarchy. Does that not happen in society? Same thing. You give he owes me. So it's like this debt, this unspoken thing that does. And in prison, it's the same thing. So what do? You start doing, that's criminal. That's criminal thinking. It's criminal mindset. And the thing is if you ever did something like the guy that when I first went in, he loaned me the pen, he was just doing what he was supposed to do. He got it back from me. Now, you're not supposed to give anybody anything. Did they? Sure, absolutely, man. Were they? I mean, we traded mackerel in there. I mean, there were things going on to get, and when I say mackerel packets, to have something done or to do something. I mean, Friday nights and Saturday nights are just like Friday nights and Saturday nights here. And I can tell you this, the sad thing is anything that you want in prison, anything that you can get on the streets, you can get in prison. And you would think it's not that way, but it is. And it's a whole nother world that I don't ever want to go through. Anybody that's there, I pray for those guys and your loved ones, for the listeners, if they're out there, man, write them letters. Do something. It's a lonely place. And yeah, they broke the law. They did something that got them there, but they're still human beings. And God looks at that. He talks about coming for the orphans, the prisoners, and the widows. And he talks about that often. And yet, I'm not saying we shouldn't be punished. I'm not saying there doesn't need to be a debt that has to be paid to society. And yet that debt continues, like right now as a felon. There's so many things I can't do. I can't vote, can't have a firearm, will not be around a firearm, don't want to be around family or friends that have them because it's an automatic. I mean, I would go back to prison automatically for 5 years. The judges can't do anything about it if you have in presence of a firearm. Can't vote. And yet I've paid my debt in a big way to society. I've done something. So there's still that scarlet letter, if you will, on that. And I look at it though, but it just reminds me about God's love. And I look back to say, you know what? He loved me enough to show me how much he loved me and what he really did for me. So I look at it that way. It's still sad, but yet those are some of the things that I deal with. I don't know if those are the good juicy stories that you wanted in prison, but
no, that's that. I think I think there's glamorized prison by Hollywood.
It is,
and
it's not a glamorous place. Even a prison camp's not glamorous.
So we can look at it, and what I love most about this today is reuniting with you. The second thing is you didn't become a victim in this, and I see victimhood a lot in what I do, and it's not just in our inner city, it's in our whole community. Mm-hmm. Talk about how you didn't become a victim to this.
It's at a certain point, for me, what got me there it's easy to say, I didn't do it, I didn't mean to do it. But when I look down at the whole thing and you're sitting in prison, you start thinking, wait a minute, I did do this. I did this. You know, and it happens slowly, but it happens quickly. And I'll tell you, what made me not a victim was just taking responsibility. You know, there are a couple things that I talk about now that when I speak to groups or in men's groups, it's called radical accountability and rigorous honesty.
Talk about both.
I have to be radically accountable. I need guardrails. My personality, I need guardrails. Look, I'm entrepreneurial. I mean, I've been able to do things in the community starting, you know, we saw Gordon Ferguson in here as we were leaving. He was such a great man. Did, you know, Ascension, led that healthcare system for so many times. And, you know, I see so much that our community is, I'm so grateful for what he's done because, you know, him being up there and at the helm has grown our access to care and the quality of care that we have. But, you know, I was able to help start Trust Point Hospital. And you get going in those things, and I start thinking all the things that I do, and I'm entrepreneurial. And you talked about business. You know, we haven't talked about dentistry. And that was what I realized about myself, too. I loved dentistry, and I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed what I could do with it and grow it and help more people and do those things. And I liked doing it. But there came a point where it was like, you know, I enjoyed doing that growth and the business stuff even better, and we talked about that. But I need guardrails. I mean, my personality type, I need things that come in. And if I'm not careful and I'm not honest with who I am and what I do, just like you said about those things, I'm going to get in trouble. So not being a victim means owning what you did. I made a choice, not a mistake. It was a choice. And that's where I leave it. So radical accountability and rigorous honesty. I got to be honest with who I am first. You know, who am I when nobody's looking? Who am I at nighttime? Who am I at 1 a.m. and who I am at 1 p.m.? Is it the same person? And I can say I am now. I can't say I was then. So.
Well, we'll take our final break and be back with Nate Schott on the Roundtable.
Huge news. Right now at Wendy's, you can get a Son of Baconator for just $3. I don't think you understand this situation. The Son of Baconator is only $3 for a limited time. You know, smoked bacon, rich melted cheese. That Son of Baconator is only $3. Thank you to whoever wished upon that star. For bacon that just won't quit, gotta be Wendy's.
U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii, not valid on a combo or on third-party delivery platforms.
As a fan, you know all the important sports cliches. And when you save money by bundling your home and auto with Progressive, you can get out there and give it 110%, even though that's mathematically impossible. And remember, failure is not an option. Well, it's always an option, just not a good one. But you're not worried because you've got ice in your veins. You're on fire. How can both of those things be true at the same time? Well, that's between you and your doctor. So get out there and leave it all on the field. Leave what? Who cares? Just leave it and save with a bundle from Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
This is Kim Dunaway from Sunshine Nutrition Center. You hear me on Monday mornings at 7:20 talking about how to lead a healthier lifestyle. We carry supplements, personal care, and grocery items at both our Murfreesboro and Smyrna locations, family owned and operated since 1989.
Choosing the right insurance can be overwhelming. That's where Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance comes in. At Rayburn, we're not just about policies, we're about people. Rick Hall will take the time to understand your needs and find the best coverage at the best price. We've been serving our community since 1973. So why not let Rick Hall take the stress out of insurance? Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency, where you're more than just a policy number. You're our neighbors.
This is a paid legal ad.
You've probably heard it a million times. If you're injured, call a lawyer. And you probably haven't because you don't know how much it will cost, how long it will take, or even if you have a case. At the law offices of John Day, we provide a free initial consultation because we understand that folks don't want to pay a lawyer only to find out they don't have a case. If you think we can help, we do so on a contingency basis, which means we only get paid if you do. Seriously injured? Call me, John Day.
Dozens of vendors, one local tradition.
Plump, juicy tomatoes.
The Farmers Market, every Tuesday and Friday, 7 a.m. to 1.
Pick fresh this morning.
At Lane Agro Park in Murfreesboro.
Farm fresh eggs.
At 315 John R. Rice Boulevard.
50 years strong. Come see why.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Welcome back into the Roundtable. I'm Andy Herzier, founder and executive director of First Schott, here with Nate Schott. Nate, we only got a couple minutes left. What do you really want people to hear so they don't fall into the same pitfall?
Man,
I think you said it off air. Go to your King David analogy, how we as Christ followers.
I think yes, and even if you're not Christ followers, I think God does have a plan, and I don't think salvation doesn't necessarily equal that. I mean, yeah, we can be saved, and yet there's a whole part of letting God be, Jesus Christ be Lord of your life, and that doesn't still mean you're not going to make bad choices. That doesn't mean that you're not going to, commit sin. We talked about David. I mean, he's a man after God's own heart, but yet he's the blood king. God doesn't let him go because he still continues to do these things, and repentance is the big thing. I think that's the biggest thing I would tell people to look at. I mean, to search their heart, but also repent, make amends with people. I'm not perfect. You're going to make poor choices, and it doesn't mean they're going to be maybe to the magnitude that I did, but any magnitude that does something to somebody that is you and another person's relationship or a community or anything that you do, and that God is a God of second chances and a third chance and a fourth chance and a fifth chance, and continues to go because he's graceful and he's good and he wants good for us. And the biggest thing I learned was, one of the other big things is that it's all God. We say we have to do our part. God does all of it, and we get to just join him in it. It's his part. It's all him. If we could do any of it, we don't need him.
So, great story in the Bible to me is Esther, and we just learned this yesterday at church.
Yeah.
Esther's cousin Mordecai said, you can either do it or God's going to do it anyways with someone else. So
exactly.
Your family can live through it, not be killed, and you can save them, or God's going to do it anyways because he's got a plan.
Isn't that right? And he's going to do it even without us. He doesn't need us.
Yeah,
he says he'll make the rocks cry out to praise him. And I think that's the thing, too, that we get to be able to join him, and he loves us, and he cares about us. And to me, that's the story that I want people to know, that God loves you regardless of what you're going through, regardless of where you are in life. You may be going through what I went through, something far worse, something different. I learned this too: feel your feelings and tell the truth, and then give it to God. And you got to tell the truth. You got to tell the truth about where you are, who you are, what's happened, because what goes on in the dark, it's all coming out in the light anyway. You're not running away from it. I've yet to find that happening. It's all coming out.
So, well, again, Nate, I think the beauty of your awesome story is your family stayed intact.
Man, my family has been such a blessing to me. They stayed with me. My wife stayed with me. So many times, I think it's like 90-some% of the people that go to prison, they get divorced. And my wife stayed with me through it, thick and thin. She is just a rock and just amazing, amazing one. My kids we've got better relationships now than we've ever had. So I'm so grateful. God has been so good to me. And again, I want the people hearing that, he loves them. He's good to them too, and he can be. Let him.
Well, again, I thank you for coming in today. This is Andy Herzier with the Roundtable. We'll see you next Monday.